This is a book I've been reading recently, and to show my reading comprehension. It's called Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, and it's about Anakin and a lot of other Jedi and stuff. And so Anakin is going on a mission to save Chancellor Palpatine, and Obi-Wan's with him. And then there's these big robot spaceships, and they're bad guys, and they're trying to get him. And then there's 3 of them, and then Obi-Wan and Anakin get him, and then there more come, so they call on some clone troopers in their spaceships to fight him off. And then there's one more that's gonna fight him, and then one shoots Obi-Wan's ship, and then buzz droids are on his ship now, and they're trying to get him. So Anakin tries to shoot it, but it doesn't work, so he scrapes his wing onto that wing. But Obi-Wan's controls are broken, and they're trying to go into the spaceship to save Palpatine. So Anakin helps them, and they get in, and they get out of the spaceship, and because they're in the hangar. And then Obi-Wan's spaceship explodes, and then battle droids come, and they kill the battle droids. And then they go up into an elevator. And then they find the Palpatine, and he's restraining bolts onto a chair. And then Dooku comes, and he's like, "I'm gonna get you." And then they fight. And then Obi-Wan gets crumbled by a staircase. So Anakin is fighting Count Dooku, and then he cuts off his hands because Palpatine told him, "Use your anger, use it." And Anakin's like, "I don't really want to use it because that will be going to bring me closer to the dark side." So Palpatine keeps telling him to kill Dooku, and so he does. And his head chops off. And then he gets Obi-Wan and carries him into an elevator. And then when Obi-Wan wakes up, Palpatine is grabbing onto Anakin's ankle, and they're about to fall into an elevator shaft. So Anakin tells R2-D2 to hack into the controls to make the elevator come down. But then it goes down really, really fast, so they had to jump. So they jump down into the shaft, and then the strip starts breaking up, and the elevator shaft goes crooked, and it's like this, it's horizontal, and then they lose their speed and start running. And then they get away, they run away, and they get into this, almost to the hangar, and they're going the hallway, and they're almost back into the hangar, and they have the Chancellor Palpatine, and then these droids capture them and take them to another spaceship. And then they find, and then Grievous, he's a robot guy, and he has like completely robot body, but he has like human eyes and a human heart. And then they break their bonds with the Force, and they get the lightsabers, and they fight Count Dooku with all his guards. And then the gravity goes upside down, and they're fighting on the ceiling. And a bunch of battle droids don't realize it, but they get beaten up. And then there's some super battle droids, and then those ones with the force fields come, and then they beat them, and then they get those guys. And then there's just a few more left. And then there's a big hole in the side of and Grievous makes a hole in the side of the ship, and he jumps out. And then he goes onto the side, and then the shield goes back over, so the sucking goes away. And then he gets into a escape pod and launches all the other escape pods, so Anakin and Obi-Wan can't get away. And then he goes away, and he gets to another ship. And then Anakin and Obi-Wan and Palpatine, they're like, "Oh no." And then they get all the battle droids. So then they get into their chairs and buckle up, and Obi-Wan's doing the calculations, and Anakin's flying it, and then they go on fire through the atmosphere, and they're almost to Coruscant. But then these guys they put out the fire, and they're okay. And then they go to a Jedi meeting, and the Palpatine's back, and then Anakin and Padme talk, and they're married in secret, and they talk for a really long time. And then so there's a lot of stuff, so I'm just going to skip to this part. But there's just little details in there. So the Jedi have realized that Palpatine has been trying to get some more power over the Jedi, and so they think that they're gonna go send Obi-Wan to go kill Grievous, and if that doesn't end the war, then they're gonna arrest Chancellor Palpatine. So they go, and then Obi-Wan goes, and he gets this lizard to go down to one of the sinkhole places, and I forgot the name, Utapau, I think, and then Obi-Wan goes into the city, and then there's a sinkhole, and that's where Grievous is. So he gets a lizard that can climb on the walls, and he rides it down the walls, and then Grievous comes, and then he hears a meeting, and he says this, and Grievous is like, "You're safe here," and then Obi-Wan jumps down, and he says like, and then all the battle droids go and attack, and then Obi-Wan calls his clone troops, and then they all go down there, and then they help him. And then they hold up the battle droids, and then Grievous runs away, and he gets on a speeder bike, and he zooms away. And so Obi-Wan gets onto his lizard and runs after him, but then he realizes he lost his lightsaber, but he keeps going on because he's almost to him. And then they go into a tunnel, and then Obi-Wan's like, now I have an advantage over him. So he has his lizard climb onto the ceiling and jump down on Grievous, and his bike breaks. But then Grievous gets out his laser stick and then goes at Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan uses the Force to get the electro stick to fly away. And then Grievous pulls out a blaster and shoots at him. He does the same to the blaster, and then he gets him down, and then he gets him with the electro spear and stabs him, and then he realizes, and then he's fallen over, and then he realizes that he loosened some of his Grievous's armor on his chest when he hit it with the electro spear. So he goes at him and he grabs it and he rips off the piece. Then he gets out the blaster pistol and he shoots him in the gut and he dies. And then he goes back to Coruscant, and then while all this is happening, Anakin is going to see while this is happening, also Anakin gets good to be in the council, but they don't make him a master Jedi, so he's mad. And then he goes and he's like the Chancellor's guy. So he goes into the Chancellor's office, and then he senses something, and then he asks some questions to Palpatine, and then he's like, "I know the way to the Force. I can teach you to save Padme." And also Anakin's having these dreams that Padme's gonna die in childbirth because she's pregnant, and also Grievous tells him there's this Darth Plagueis, and he's like, he can stop anyone from dying. And so then he says, I know the ways of the Force. And then he's like, I was taught to be a Jedi, and I also know the dark side. And Anakin's like, you're a Sith Lord, so he gets his lightsaber out. And then they talk for a little, and he's like, you come to the dark side, Anakin, and you'll be able to save Padme. And then Anakin's like, he's gonna kill him, and he's like, you're gonna kill me, right? And he thinks about it and says, no. And then he says, go, and then he gets it, then later, and then, so, as Anakin leaves, the next day he comes back, and then Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, let's see, I think they're all on here. So, Saesee Tiin, Edith Koth, Mace Windu, and Kit Fisto prepare to arrest the Chancellor. And then they go in and they do. And then they're about to get him. And then Palpatine kills all the other guys except Mace Windu because he's really good. And Mace Windu's like, whoa! And he accidentally slices the window and was, and then he tries to get him. Palpatine's on the ground, so he lifts up his purple lightsaber and tries to kill him. And Anakin's looking through the window and he opens the door and he's like, don't. And then Palpatine gets out his hands and he goes, stands up, and zaps, and Mace Windu blocks the first blow and he keeps throwing it and he stands up. But then Anakin realizes he's getting older as he uses the Force lightning. And then Mace Windu gets kitten, and then Palpatine gets out his red lightsaber and cuts off his hand, and then he zaps him again, and he falls out the open window, and then he falls out and dies. And then Anakin's like, I will be your apprentice, and Palpatine's like, okay. And then he says, you are now Darth Vader. And then Obi-Wan finds out, well, Yoda does, and then he tells Obi-Wan. He says to Obi-Wan, so they figure out and they find out because they go into the temple and then they read hologram messages. They see them and they see that Anakin's killing all the Jedi with some clone troopers. And then Yoda says we have to kill him. So Yoda goes in a fight with Palpatine. Then Yoda falls off the thing they're fighting on, and then Bail Organa comes and gets him, and then they go to this thing and this meeting, and Padme and Dale are there, and they watch that Palpatine. He says, "I'm now Emperor Palpatine, and this is the Empire, not the Republic, and the war is over." So Yoda and Bail get Obi-Wan, and they take him to the planet. Well, actually, they get him and they take him back to Coruscant, and then all this stuff happens. And then he sneaks on a ship with Padme because Padme is going to the lava planet where Anakin is, and then she goes there, and then Obi-Wan hides in her ship, and then they get out, and then they're Padme and Anakin are talking, and then Anakin sees Obi-Wan behind Padme, and he says, "You lied to me," and then he chokes her, and she gets knocked out, and Obi-Wan's like, "Oh," and then Anakin's like, "I don't want to kill you," and then they start fighting, and then Anakin jumps on this thing, and then Obi-Wan says, "I have the high ground," and then Anakin's like, "Jump," and then he cuts him, and then he falls and then he starts burning up, and then Obi-Wan gets Padme and leaves, and then the Emperor comes, and then he sees Anakin and turns into a robot, and that's the end. And he becomes